Welcome to the Panteva Perspective, Corporate Immigration and Global Mobility.
Welcome to the Panteva Perspective, Corporate Immigration and Global Mobility with immigration attorney Iskra Panteva. Iskra is the founder of Panteva Law Group in Chicago, where she helps companies, entrepreneurs, and highly skilled professionals navigate the complexities of U.S. business immigration. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about TN visas and how employers can use this pathway to hire Canadian and Mexican professionals. Ms. Iskra, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Iskra, can you explain what the TN visa is and how it fits into the broader landscape of employment-based immigration options in U.S. companies?
Yeah, of course. TN visa is a visa that came about in about 1994. It is based on the NAFTA agreement between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And the visa came about because there was a notion that there should be a free trade between those three countries. And part of it was just exchanging talent. And that's how it initially came about. There is about a little bit over 60 different occupations that qualify. And they are, this is kind of a pretty important visa, but it is based on people that are professionals, right? So most of those are, professions like engineers, biologists, chemists, geologists, people that are in, in the science and engineering.
So the TN visa is tied to the U.S. Mexico Canada agreement. How did that agreement create this category? Why does it exist specifically for Canadian and Mexican professionals?
So yeah, there was an idea that we should have a better exchange with companies and also trade and also people and professionals between those countries, and that's how it came about.
So for employers in Illinois considering this option, what types of roles or professions are eligible under the TN visa category?
So, as I said, there is numerous professions that are eligible under this category. We have professions in business and accounting, in medical field, like registered nurse, pharmacist, dentist. There are some, also architects, IT professionals, like engineers. So those are kind of different categories. But if you are interested in one of those visas, definitely you need to check the occupational list, which is part of the NAFTA agreement. So there is a list with different professions that are eligible for this visa, and they should be, that position should be on that list, occupational list.
Unlike some other visa types, the TN category relies on specific lists of professions. How does that list affect whether a company can use this visa for a particular position?
Well, if the company has a position that is open and they are looking for, employees within that position, that usually will kind of bring them to either, to look for somebody that is in the United States. And if they cannot find that person in the United States, that employee, then they can always look into TN visa category and look into professionals from Canada or Mexico.
One thing that makes the TN visa appealing is the relatively quick process. How does that application process usually work for Canadian professionals compared to Mexican professionals?
So yeah, there is a little bit of a caveat here with Mexican professionals. In order for you to obtain a visa, you will need to, prepare a list of documents, and then you will need to present yourself in front of the Department of State consulate in one of the, posts overseas in Mexico. There you will get a visa, and once you have a visa, then you can come to the United States. With the agreement in Canada, the process is a little bit more simplified. Mexican process is also pretty simple, but With Canada, basically anybody that wants to come to the United States and has an employer that is willing to sponsor him can basically come at the border with all of the information that they have, all of the documents that they need to present, and then at the border they will be entered, they will be let in on a TN visa. So there is no need for a visa stamp, there is no need to go for an interview. You just go at the border and present your documents, and you can be entered in under that occupation with a TN category.
So what documentation typically needs to be prepared by the employer and the professional before the TN application can be submitted or presented at the border?
So usually for a TN visa, there are three major things that are important to the USCIS officers as well as Customs and Border Protection officers. Those are evidence that the company that is about to sponsor that individual is doing business, that it's an active company, they're doing business, and that business is related to the occupation, right? Then the other option that they need to, another documents that they need to present is a job description, right? What exactly they are trying to hire this individual for. Is this going to be an engineering position? Is this going to be, accounting position? Is it economist position? What kind of position that will be? So there will be a job description as well as the requirements for the position. And here, we are going to be looking at the position that the employer has and the occupational list as well. So if the occupational list requires an engineer and then the job description is an engineering position, then we can look into whether or not the beneficiary actually has the requirements that are underlined under TN visa and NAFTA agreement. So job description, and then on the third part will be the beneficiary's qualification. So whether or not they have the degree. Usually for TN visa, a bachelor degree is required, but sometimes they can qualify under certain experience, right? So if they have a certain experience, if they have some additional years of education, formal education, that can qualify them for certain position. So we need to make sure that the beneficiaries qualify under that, not only under the position for the employer, for the satisfaction of the employer, but also under the occupational title and the occupational requirements.
You work with employers navigating different immigration strategies. Can you share an example of a situation where a TN visa turned out to be the most practical option for hiring a professional?
Well, as we discussed a little bit earlier, TN visa is very, very beneficial because it doesn't require a lottery like an H1B visa, doesn't require extraordinary abilities like a O1 visa, doesn't require any kind of cultural exchange element like a J1 visa, right? So a TN visa, as long as you are qualified under the occupational title, and as long as the job position requires that, and obviously employer is active and doing business, you can get a visa almost instantaneously if the person is coming from Canada. If they are coming from Mexico, it can take about a little bit more than 2 months right now. It depends on what is the situation with the Mexican consulates, with the U.S. consulates in Mexico, and how long they are basically having, what is their scheduling there, and whether or not we need to wait for like 1 week, 2 weeks. Right now we are at about a month and a half to 2 months waiting time. So it's very fast, right? That's one of the main benefits. And as long as you are from Canada or Mexico, you're part of that occupation, you're kind of qualified for that occupation, you most likely will obtain it.
So how does the TN visa compare with, the H1B in terms of flexibility, timing, long-term planning for employers?
Yeah, I mean, if you are, one of the first things that we discuss with an employer once we have, once we have a consultation with them is where the employee is from. If they're from Mexico or Canada, obviously the process can be a little bit easier. H1B visa is currently limited. There is a numerical limitation, and the numerical limitation is about 85,000 spots for, and they come out every year. So currently there is more, and I can say for the last 10, 15 years, there were more, actually more than that, almost 20 years now. I think in early 2000 was when there was an availability of visas. But currently we are waiting for H1B visa, and there is more candidates than spots available, which means that they have to go through a lottery. The lottery makes things obviously complicated. The employer has to kind of rely on the luck to get that employee, and obviously, if that's not a possibility, if they cannot wait for 6 months or 9 months to hire that person, TN visa is much easier. So, for example, if you have to go through an H1B, usually in March, you need to register and participate in the lottery, and then the employee can start in October. So, you can see that there is a huge difference between getting, 6 months, waiting for 6 months, sometimes longer, to get that visa, and then just going through the consulate and getting it or crossing the border, right?
So, for a company that is exploring hiring Canadian or Mexican professionals for the first time, what early planning steps tend to make this TN process smoother, Iskra?
Yeah, I mean, there should be very clear understanding of what is the job, what does the job entails, what are the beneficiary, the employees' qualifications, whether or not they qualify for that position. And also, they need to be kind of aware of timelines, right? So we recently had an employer that had a big project in the United States, and they wanted to staff it with people that were coming out from their overseas office. So at that time, they have to be aware of what the timing is, right? You have to make sure that, okay, if the project starts in 2 months or in 3 months or in 4 months, obviously you have the time to prepare it if those employees are coming from Mexico. If your project is starting in a month, most likely you're not going to be able to get those employees on time so they can start working. So timing is always a very important part of it. And then as well as, just what kind of documents they will need, right? Job description, education, certificates of translation on all of the foreign documents, evidence that the company is doing business. It's good to have that in advance before you can start the process.
Amazing. Ms. Iskra, thank you for your time.
Of course.
That's it for today's episode of the Panteva Perspective, Corporate Immigration and Global Mobility. To learn more about Iskra Panteva and the work she does with employment-based immigration, visit panteva.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like, subscribe to the show, and share this episode with someone who might need it as well. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.